What is happening, y'all? Cowboy here, and welcome to my review of Elden Ring Nightreigne. At this point, I have close to 60 hours played. I've managed to beat all the Night Lords. I've gotten a win with every character. I've played runs with friends, as well as done some solo gameplay, done a bunch of remembrances, so I have a pretty good feel for everything the game has to offer, and I definitely have a lot of thoughts. Now, as opposed to a typical review where I kind of go down a checklist of things, a lot of that I'm not going to cover here. I mean, you know, audio design and graphics, it's basically one for one with Elden Ring. Like, yeah, there's some new boss music that's good, but, you know, if you like the audio and graphics of Elden Ring, you're probably going to like it here because it's a lot of reused assets. So instead, we're going to focus on talking about gameplay because that is the core of this game, and there is a lot to talk about. Ranging from the experience of how well Elden Ring translates the game, to the multiplayer and solo aspects, to the roguelike elements. And so let's dive in and just get to it. So the first thing I really want to talk about is kind of the shift from what Elden Ring is to Nightreigne. And I sincerely hope that anyone that's interested in this game is looking it up in advance, both in terms of what it is as well as what it offers, because if if you played Elden Ring or Shadow of the Erdtree and you enjoyed it and you're like, oh, more Elden Ring, that's going to be great. Yeah, it might not be what you're thinking it's going to be because, you know, very, very big departure. And the reason I'm saying this is I know a lot of people that aren't even like Souls-like fans that got into Elden Ring just because they had heard so much about it and it being, you know, this experience of gaming with exploring and leveling your character and finding your way through the world. And instead, we're shifting to basically a 30-minute journey where you are burning through as fast as possible, and every minute counts, and you need to learn like map routes and enemy info and scaling info and all this other stuff to really just optimize your cycle so you can even have a chance to beat a boss. And it's just a very big departure. And I think probably the biggest thing is just the rapidity of the game, like how fast you are burning through this. And just to really put it in perspective, so at the start of day one, after 4.5 minutes, the circle starts to close. At 7.5 minutes, it's fully closed, and you have a limited section of the map to explore. You get another 3.5 minutes to explore that section, and then at 6.5 minutes, it closes in to where you're going to fight a boss. And then assuming you're successful in beating that boss, you go on to night 2. So each night only lasts 14 minutes, which is not a lot of time. So when you add in like the little breaks between bosses and the time it takes to actually beat the boss itself, you're typically making it to the Night Lord in 35 to 40 minutes, depending on how competent your team is. And, you know, thinking about Elden Ring and kind of the lessons that you learn playing it, you know, like when you first walk out in Limgrave, you mess with the Tree Sentinel and you're like, all right, clearly I'm not supposed to fight this thing. I'll just leave, I'll come back, and I'll fight it later. But, you know, the thing is, if you die, it's right there. You can immediately jump back in. You can take time to learn and figure out his moveset. And you can do that here, but when you're looking at spending 40 minutes before you even make it back to a Night Lord, that is a very hefty investment. And I think it's one that not every player is going to be willing to make. It's just a very, very different vibe. But yeah, so the shift from kind of the pace of Elden Ring and how things go to instead having just this go, this crazy cycle, it's definitely a big departure, and I think it takes a lot of time to get used to just because of how short the days are. You don't even really get a lot of time to look at your items and you know, optimize your build. Like when I kill a boss and I'm looking at items, my first thought is it something I can use? If it's not something I can use, my next thought is this a passive that's good for me? If it's not, then I'm going, okay, is this something that's going to help my teammates? And if it's not, whatever, I'm picking whatever and I'm leaving. And that whole process, I'm trying to make that decision in roughly 5 seconds, because that's what it comes down to in this game. It's go, 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 go. There's no time for breaks. And I was even joking with Roguelike, because we've been playing a lot. I have a lot of runs with him coming up on the channel. And I was telling him, I'm like, man, your viewers are going to fucking hate me in this series because we're going and he'll be looking at items and he's like, oh, I think I want this. And I'm like, Rory, we gotta go. The circle is closing, we gotta go. And he's like, I'm coming. And I'm like, man. But like, that's what's getting ingrained into me as I play this game is just how rapid things are and how I can't really afford time to wait. I have to go. And so it's just it's a very different experience from every FromSoft game that's come before it. And I can say with certainty it's definitely going to be the most divisive title they've released so far. I think easily. I think some people are going to really enjoy this and have a good time with it. And I think other people are going to absolutely hate this game and not even just dislike it. I think they're going to hate it just because it's just so different from what we've come to expect. But the experience itself, it's not bad. There's definitely a lot of knowledge that goes into it, and the game does provide you with a lot of that knowledge. Like even at the start in Round Table Hold, there's a visual codex which lists details of all your characters. It lists what you scale with. So like right now you see me playing Executor, so he is a arcane and dex scaling character, so he's really good with things like katanas, naginatas, twin blades, anything that's going to get like really rapid status build up that's fast attacking, he is going to be awesome with. And then there's even a breakdown of all the weapons that are in the game and their rarity and what their scaling is to help inform you like, hey, when you're looking for weapons, this is the type of stuff you want to go for. Same thing for spells and shields and bows and breakdowns of talismans. So like all the information is there, which is super cool, because going into the game, you know, it feels like you're taking a test, but FromSoft has given you a cheat sheet with all the answers ahead of time. Like even in this codex, it even breaks down like the various things in the map, like the castles and the ruins and whatnot, and what type of rewards you can expect, so you can inform yourself as you're going out on runs and have an idea of what to look for and what the key items you want and where you might find them would be. And all this information is definitely critical to having successful runs. It's all very important when it comes down to kind of diving into the game and just scooting. Like even right here, you can see that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna grab this because that's a passive. I might give it to him later. We're grabbing the loot. The blues come in. We're just grabbing some stuff. We're gonna run over. We're gonna jump off of this. We're racing out of the blue, and it's just go. It's very, very fast now. And on top of that, one thing I do want to call out is they increase the circle damage considerably from the beta. The circle isn't just, oh, I'll just get some regen and I'll chill. Like, no, the circle will kill you. So much so that personally, I think it actually needs to get nerfed, but I'll talk about that a little bit later when I get to the things that I consider faults with the game. But, you know, just the pacing, I think it definitely requires you to not only practice on runs, but getting a good level of familiarity with like the items, your character, what builds to look out for. I think there's also a certain amount of experience you need in terms of map knowledge, because whether you're hitting like the large castle in the middle or you're hitting a world boss or whatever the case is, like there's certain things that are worth hitting at certain times. I guess a good example of this would be like the gargoyle. Like if I see a gargoyle on the map, if I'm not at least level 10, I'm not even going to bother wasting my time. Because even if we can kill it, and we might, that gargoyle is just going to gobble up so much time that in the time it takes to kill him, I probably could have cleared like 2 or 3 other camps. And so a lot of that stuff you're just going to gain with experience, but you know, it is what it is. That's kind of the nature of the beast with roguelikes, and so players just, you know, need to expect that and understand what they're getting into. Talking a little bit about the multiplayer and solo aspect. So I will say outright, I think this game is best played with friends. Like when you are playing with people and you're in voice comms and you're coordinating and you're sharing loot, that is where it excels. Because I'll be, you know, even earlier, you saw me grab that Great Stars. And I'm like, this isn't good for me. This would be great for Noza. Let me grab that, toss it on over to him. And now he's rocking the Great Stars. We're good, we're set. So that's where things are the best by far, because you know you're coordinating. Even if you don't find a crazy katana, they might be like, hey, I got this crazy weapon for you, I'm gonna give it to you, and you're like, dope, I can't wait, thank you. And you know, so the runs are coming together, and you have those clutch moments where it's like, oh no, I'm going down, and then someone else is like, no, I'm popping my ultimate, you're not going down, I'm keeping us alive. And those are the moments that the game excels at. That is where it's firing on all cylinders. You're having a blast with it. And I wish it was like that all the time. Playing with randoms, on the other hand, is like an exercise in frustration. And I think a big thing is because we just don't have communication in this game outside of like standard FromSoft communication, which is, you know, pinging items and utilizing the emote system. But like you can't, like, well, beyond the fact that you obviously can't coordinate loot when loot is dropping until after the fact. I have had teammates that clearly just don't know what they're doing, and without any in-game comms, there's no real way to help them or inform them, or, you know, whatever the case may be. I think probably the best example I've encountered of this, even during the review period, I had a day where I was like, let me try and just do some games. So I just queued up just to see who else was queuing, because not everyone jumps into the review Discord. Some people like to just do their own thing. And I had a guy I was matched with that was playing Executor, the guy I'm playing right now. And as I mentioned, this is an arcane dex type character. So, well, I know we just swapped to Raider, but, you know, arcane dex type character. He's made for katanas and stuff like that. Now, Raider, on the other hand, Raider is your Unga Bunga man. He's like A health, A stamina, S strength. This man is meant to grab the biggest stick he can find and beat stuff with it. Very distinct playstyles. And the Executor that I was paired with was running around with an Erd Tree Great Axe. And I'm like, my brother, what are you doing? And I had no way to communicate with him. He's just running around bonking stuff with it. He's not using his katana at all, which is wild because it's full-on Sekiro parries. And it is what it was. And like at one point in that run, I found Moonveil. Moonveil is one of the best weapons, hands down, for Executor. So I drop Moonveil, I ping it a couple times. I'm like jiggling my weapon in front of it. He comes over, he looks at it, picks it up, he equips it. And then he throws it on the ground and he goes back to using his bonk stick. And I'm like, my guy, like, what are you doing? Like, you're using a strength weapon on a character that has no strength. You're not using your special, which allows you to parry bosses repeatedly like your Sekiro. Like, what is going on? And it was just incredibly frustrating, like, witnessing this and not even being able to really communicate, like, hey, you can parry anything if you use that stance, and you're going to benefit a lot more from this katana. I know that weapon might have a bigger number on it. Trust me, you're going to hit harder with this katana. Like, there's just, that communication just could not happen. It was just frustrating. It was incredibly frustrating to experience that. And inevitably, we ended up losing that run. We didn't get through it, but, you know, it just is what it is. And that is why I really do not like playing with randoms in this game. Not playing with solo, on the other hand, it's about what you would expect for a roguelike in terms of the solo experience. And to elaborate on that, you know, it's the loot's all going to come down to you. So you're picking your run, you're deciding what to fight when. Obviously, when you die, things are over. We'll say I don't think all classes are created equally when it comes to solo play. I think Revenant, Guardian, Raider, Wilder, and Iron Eye are all very solid solo choices. I think that the Recluse, as well as the Revenant, and even Duchess to a certain extent, I have not had any luck with them playing solo. They're too squishy. Those characters have like D or C in health, and, you know, it's just like, because you go down and a run ends in solo if it's nighttime, it just feels extra punishing. You know, like you might be having what you think is a good run. You get up to the boss, you make one mistake, and you're bonked in one hit because of how squishy your character is, and you're just like, man, that don't feel good. That sucks. Like I think a solo Recluse run is probably one of the most like impressive things that we'll see people do in this game, because even with all the casting, like, you need to cast and then pull stuff off characters, and you'll actually see some Recluse gameplay a little bit later. It's incredibly difficult to do solo, and so ultimately it's just a case of, you know, not all classes are created equal when it comes to solo play, I feel. But at the end of the day, it's a roguelike. And so let's talk about that, because there's some parts where I feel it did okay, and other parts where it kind of just outright failed. So the idea here is each time you drop into the map, it's supposed to be different. They added this thing called shifting earth, so occasionally certain parts of the map can be modified. It could be like a big volcanic fissure in the ground, it could be a snowy mountaintop, it could be a rot region, or it could be like a Noxtella style city. And when you manage to go through these regions, there's usually something unique that's going to be waiting for you at the end, and it's going to be a major buff of some sort. And so those are a really, really nice way for things to get mixed up in terms of the gameplay. There's also events like what you see us doing right now. This is like an invasion type event. So it's basically a portion of the map that has been overrun with night. And then there's going to be NPC versions of the characters that we have to take out. And they do insane damage, as you're seeing right here. But killing them will usually get you some really, really sick loot, which is nice. Besides that, there is, I think they might actually end up killing us here looking at this gameplay. They don't mess around. You know, there's world bosses on the map. There's different bosses in each of the events. But at the same time, the more I played, the more I noticed that seeds weren't as random as I would expect. And I guess the best way to describe this would be, like, we were doing one run, and we were going after a target where, like, we had to have access to lightning weaponry to even consider fighting this thing. Like, if you couldn't interrupt its ability with lightning, your group was probably going to end up getting wiped. And we didn't have any lightning type shrines on the map. So we're like, all right, screw it, you know, let's trash the run, we'll jump back in. And then we jumped back in, and it was the same exact setup. Like, it was almost like we had a repeat seed going on. And I was like, this is so weird. Why is it, like, nothing has changed at all? What the hell is happening here? And I had that happen quite a few times where, like, I would do a match, I would jump into another match, and it's like, the ruins have the same boss, and then the castle has the same boss, and then the shifting earth obviously is always the same because that's laid out. And so while the game is a roguelike, it's not nearly as random as I would like it to be. Now part of me thought, well, you know, maybe it's because we're in the review access, because they said there's like 100 some bosses or something. I think when they say there's 100 some bosses, they're talking about like even little bosses, because there is not nearly enough randomness in this for it to be like a respectable roguelike. Like, you know, because the general map layout is basically always going to be the same with the exception of the shifting earth. So like, you know, certain points to hit. I know, like, if I go in the mine, every time I go, if the southern mine is available, every time I go in the southern mine, there's a troll I can kill. I can get a thing to upgrade a weapon to purple 100% of the time. If the double northern mines are available, the one on the right side is always going to have a pumpkin head that I kill, and I get that same upgrade mat. The one on the left, I haven't ever found a boss inside of it. So as far as I know, I think it just exists to piss you off and get you lost in. But I haven't spent the time to fully explore it because of the short amount of time that we actually have when we're in the game. But so that's kind of what I'm talking about is, you know, that level of run intimacy where you're like, oh, yep, we're going to hit boom, 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 boom. And I'm at the point now where I can queue in, I can look at a map, and like within a minute, I know the route I'm going to take to maximize my level in the map to get as much stuff as possible. And I don't even really need to think about it. You know, the randomness is going to come in the form of the loot that's dropping. That part is always going to be random. But I really wish there was more randomness in terms of the loot that's dropping, or not just the loot that's dropping, but the environment that we're going through. Because it feels like the randomness has very much been reduced to, you know, boss roulette when it comes to the boss that's going to spawn at nighttime and the loot you're going to get. Because the map layout, you can map through that and it's going to be fairly identical a lot of the time. And then on top of that, there's a lot of bosses that you're always going to fight. Like if I'm going into an ice ruin, very frequently it's going to be like the Boreal Warriors or whatever. If I'm going into a fire ruin, my choice is going to be like a fire monk. And it's just, it is what it is. You learn very quickly what you're going to fight where. And, you know, I think that just kind of like on one hand, it's nice that you're able to gain that run knowledge, but on the other, you know, I'm playing a roguelike because I want that randomness. And I definitely don't think it delivered as well as it could in regards to that. There's also a lot of like RNG type mechanics or just general roguelike mechanics that feel oddly missing. And I think a good example of this is there's no way to sell loot. And typically this isn't a huge concern, but you make it all the way up to the Night Lord, and then there's a merchant there. And it's not uncommon to get to the Night Lord and then be like, oh, man, I'm like 2,000 runes short of a level. 2,000 runes. That sucks. Like, why not just let me sell one of the weapons I picked up, you know? Let me sell this great axe that I'm just using as a passive stat for a couple thousand runes so I can grab my level. Make it only at the end. But, like, I don't, you know... Because I think about games like Hades and whatnot, where if I want to sacrifice stuff, I can get some benefit out of that. And unfortunately, there's nothing really like that here. It's also true for items. There's going to be times where, you know, you're going to pick up an item and, you know, you get a reward, and like I'll be playing Raider and it's like sorceries and incants hit harder, a rapier, or your flask is a heal over time. And I'm like, these are shit. I don't want any of these. None of these are good for my teammate. Like, this is just a outright waste. And, you know, in a lot of roguelikes, there's usually a skip option where you would just skip the reward and instead you would just like get some runes or get some currency or whatever the case is. And it distinctly feels missing here, because there are times where RNG is going to drop and you're just not getting anything fucking good out of it. And then that just, like, you know, here's a perfect example. I'm like, well, I guess I'll take a holy crossbow. I mean, I don't need a dagger. Yeah, okay, why not? Like, it just feels very like, I guess. And I don't like that feeling. I don't want the, I guess this is good because the other choices are crap, you know? So, I think in terms of the roguelike, I still think there's a lot they could do. You know, I think there should be some type of recycle feature. I think there should be some type of skip feature where you just get more runes if you're passing out on a reward. I think coordinating rewards between teammates needs to be a lot better. Like, I should be able to, if I'm looking at a reward and it's like a legendary bow, I should be able to suggest that instead of just being like, well, I'm going to grab it and I hope that one of my teammates is going to use it. Like, I should be able to suggest it, and then one of them like sends me a fucking thumbs up or something, and I'm like, cool, I'm going to grab it for him. You know, and it's unfortunately just, it feels very half-baked in regards to stuff like that, which I think is a problem. Now, besides that, there are some other problems that I have with the game. Probably the biggest, by far, my biggest complaint with the game is the jump sucks. It sucks. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The jump is just pure stanky butt, man. There are so many times where I've been trying to jump up a wall. And, you know, we're supposed to be able to double jump and clamber, and I'm either not double jumping or my character's slipping or I'm not clambering. And the only thing I can guess is that when they were testing this, they didn't test for latency at all. Because there, I mean, you'll see it in some of the gameplay episodes, but man, the jump is so fucking frustrating at times. It kills me. And like, it's bad enough where I'm like, you know what, just fucking double the jump height. Because I have had parts where I am running somewhere and the circle's enclosing in and I'm spamming jump for like 15 seconds trying to climb up a wall that I know is climbable, and my character is just failing to grasp. And nothing is more frustrating than that. It is by far the worst fucking part of this game, and they absolutely need to patch it. Make the fucking jump bigger, clean up the clambering ability. I don't care what you do. Fix that shit. It's garbage. Moving on from there, the circle, honestly, it hurts way too much. And this one is definitely tricky, because I know back in the beta test, people were just like stacking HP regen builds, and they were ignoring damage from the circle and just continued to explore. As it is now, the circle is so devastating that even if you're trying to outrun it and you get caught, you're probably dead. And just to put a scenario in perspective that happened on a match that we ended up losing because of this. So we were doing one of the shifting earth events, which was the fissure. It's a giant crack in the earth. You go all the way down, you beat a boss, you get a free legendary upgrade for one of your weapons. Super good event, obviously, because that legendary weapon is going to allow you to just pump big damage into a boss. The circle is coming in. It's like at the last second. Kill the boss, like as the circle is hitting us. It spawns the grace. We grab our loot, we grab our legendary, the grace tops us off, and then you need to hit one of those spirit birds to leave. We hit the spirit bird, we're flying. Spirit bird is just beelining it out of this place. But despite that, the circle is moving faster than the bird. And so there we are, actively like trying to escape the circle with everything we have, and it's moving too fast. And we die on the bird, mid-escape, lose a level. We're not getting that level back because it's the end of night 2. So now we are, instead of going up against the boss at level 13, looking at a possible 13, we are level 12. Going to be lucky if we get back to 13. And it feels so fucking devastating to see that happen. Now, I'm not saying the circle needs to deal way less damage, because, like, I get it, it was a problem, but I see no reason that they couldn't do something gradual, you know? Where, like, the first 15 seconds you're standing in the circle, you're going to take 1 health per second. And then the next 15 seconds you're standing in the circle. It kicks up. It's up to 100 health, or 10 health per second. And then by the 45-second mark, it's doing 50 health per second. And if you're still in that circle by the time it reaches a minute, it's doing like 100 health per second and you're just dying. Like, that's how it is in tons of other games that feature the enclosing circle type mechanic, but where it is here, it feels like it's HP percentage based. So, like, even at high levels, like, that circle hits you, bro, you're out in that circle more than 20 seconds, you're fucking cooked. And it doesn't matter if you are hauling ass as fast as you possibly can. If you cannot outrun it, you are dead. And honestly, I think that feels bad. I feel like I shouldn't be punished for actively trying to run out of the circle, especially so because there is no timer in this game. If they put a timer up where it's like, you know, night begins in X amount of seconds, I could know, oh shit, yo, circle's going in, let's move now. We don't want to get caught. But that's not the case. You just get the message, you know, the rain begins to fall, night comes. And then you better get the fuck out, because if you don't, that circle is going to whoop your ass. And, you know, it's one of those things that I've played a lot of battle royales. I've played a lot of games that are, like, thematically like this. And in almost every other case, it was done better in those games. So it's absolutely something that they need to work on. Another thing, and this is actually distinct to the Recluse type character. So the Recluse, very interesting character. It's basically like Invoker from Dota, but I need to yank elemental aspects off enemies or allies to empower my spells. And your best spells come from having 3 different elemental aspects. But the problem therein lies that if I need, like, for example, Lightning, Holy, and Fire is probably my favorite spells. This huge lightning call down. It does a ton of damage. If both my teammates have fire weapons, I could throw Lightning Bolt and try to yoink that lightning. I'm never going to get that lightning off. I've had instances like that where that's the exact situation is happening. And it's just like lightning, fire, 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 magic, fire, 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 fire. And I can't even though I'm throwing out the spells, because they're hitting the fire weapon, they're reapplying fire damage to the boss. And so there's just physically no way for me to grab the other elements I need in that circumstance unless I am communicating to them and I'm like, hey, I need y'all to stop hitting the boss for a couple seconds so I can get this buff. And even then, that's a terrible fucking solution, because no one wants to, hey, I'm the mage and I need holy for a second. Can you not hit the boss? And like, when I'm playing with friends, I'll coordinate and I'll be like, yo, do you got a holy weapon? Can you whack it real fast? I'm going to pull this and I'll put a buff up for us. And they're like, yeah, that's cool. But that's not even a case with randoms. And I think that's also problematic. I think the Recluse should be able to, like, I don't know, scroll through the 3 most recent elements that had been put on something. Because having to yank something off when other people can overwrite it, it's problematic in and of itself. So this one has, it's gone on for a bit of a while. There's obviously a lot more I could say, but I mean, at the end of the day, I did like the game, but it absolutely has problems. And beyond the obvious divisive nature of the game, I think that there are a lot of issues with the roguelike approach they've taken that could absolutely be done better. And I think the months after launch, when we see changes, whether it's going to be the balance or whatever the case is, I think that's going to ultimately discover whether or not I continue to play this in the future. I will say that right now I like playing it with friends. Solo is growing on me, but playing the game with randoms is just, it's not fun for me at all. And then the little hiccups I mentioned, stuff like not being able to jump properly, you know, the circle damaging you hard as fuck and not having a timer, stuff like that is also pretty annoying. So if I was going to put a score on this, if you're playing this or planning to play this with friends and y'all are in Discord together and you're jamming out, it's a solid 4 out of 5. It has problems, but it's easy enough to overlook when you're having fun. If you are planning to get this and you don't know anybody else that has it and you're just gonna jump in with randoms, this shit is a 3 out of 5. And if you're gonna play it completely solo, I think it's somewhere in the middle, because solo can be fun, but like I said, I don't really think solo is viable on all characters equally. Some characters are gonna cruise through solo, other characters, it's gonna feel like you're putting your dick in a cheese grater. So, I did enjoy the game. Like I said, I don't put 60 hours into something I don't like. I definitely think FromSoft needs to take some time and keep cooking to fix up some of these issues if they want this to be a hit.